Welcome to The Brain Factor, hosted by myself, Joy Riddle, and Laura Hawley. We're a part of Meridian Behavioral Healthcare, where we believe that wellness is within everyone's reach. This podcast is a conversation about what research-based protective factors look like in real life. Our hope is that you'll walk away with something that you can use in your own life and have had some fun with us along the way. So let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to The Brain Factor. Thanks for joining us today. We are today going to dive into some coping mechanisms in a different way, right? So one of the protective factors is emotional self-regulation. And I think that's worth looking at. You know? I think it's worth looking at. We talk a lot about like doing work on ourselves. We talk a lot about coping skills. You know, some of our previous and future episodes really sort of dive into, how to spend time looking at whether it's stress management or problem solving or something like that. But the reality is, as we're going through our day-to-day life, there are situations that we find ourselves in that require like a heat of the moment, 3-second, 5-minute tool that nobody knows I'm using, and then like I got to get through the moment. And then like maybe later I can reflect, or sort of part of my longer term self-care plan might be like doing some of this work on myself. But that doesn't help me when I have my hand on the doorknob, right? Or when I'm sitting in a room, right?
Yeah. Or when you're, you're in the grocery store and something happens, someone bumps into you.
Right.
Just it could be anything.
Somebody cuts me off on I-75. Like,
Yeah. Or you're going to walk in to do a big presentation or get online for your podcast.
Right. So what are those moments that, and I think there are really multiple moments a day where at least the door is open for that. The opportunity exists for us to feel nervousness or defensiveness or fear or anger or stress or anxiety, something that's just sort of the volume gets turned up on us in that moment. And so I think we need a nice little collection of tools as human beings to use in that moment.
Yeah. So we thought today that we'd share our hacks with you. What our go-to
hacks in the moment, anxiety hacks.
Yes.
Right. So emotional regulation. All right. So what are something that you do? I'm totally going to put you on the spot to start us off.
So some things I do. One of them I call a pre-plan attack. It's also associated with positive self-talk. So you can look at it in two different ways. But if I'm walking into something, like you said, my hand is on the doorknob and I'm about to walk in, I know prior to that, because it happens time and time again, what's going to happen to me. I don't know when it's going to happen. It could be when my hand is on the door or when I'm sitting in the meeting or doing the presentation. But there are certain internal things that are going to attack me. So I want to attack them first. They're going to be like, you're not competent to do this. Why would anybody listen to you anyway? Those types of things. So I have to have in advance these, things that I'm going to say back to it, whether it's positive affirmation. Yeah, you can do this because you do this all the time.
Sure.
You're good at this. This is part of your role.
But pre-planning those is
pre-planning those. Yeah. So I know the things that I'm going to say to myself when these things come up. Well,
but I like that idea. Like I have, that's not something I think that naturally occurs for me, but I'm going to try that because I really like the idea of because you're absolutely right. Like the mean stuff we say to ourselves is kind of the same. There's a script there and I love that you have such an awareness. Like these are the negative things I say to myself without fail every time. I know why I'm going to be nervous because I'm going to doubt my competence. It happens every time, right? So if that happens every time, what's the counterattack?
Yeah. Well, when we pulled up this morning to record this podcast, you parked right behind me and you came in and I got my stuff and met you. And I was like, oh, this is part of my pre-plan attack because I get there early. I sit in my vehicle. I answer some emails. I want to take that, for me, that rushing experience shoots my anxiety through the roof.
Right.
So I put all these things in place that I know that are going to be calming to me, so that when it's time for me to walk in, I'm walking in having told myself all these wonderful things, accomplishing a few things.
Yeah.
That
no,
morning.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you're creating a space for those things to happen, right? So you're kind of getting it out of the way. I do something it's similar, but it's not, it won't shock you to hear that it lacks the planning. But it's in its theming, it's very similar. I call it the knockout punch, right?
Yeah.
So I have certain ways that I will phrase it in my head. And it's usually that's not entirely true, or the evidence against that. And if anybody's watched more than just this podcast, you've heard me talk about evidence before, right? And so the evidence against that is, so I use those sentence starters in my self-talk to sort of combat the negative self-talk. But I don't, like, the difference is, like, I don't anticipate what that negative self-talk is going to be. But when it shows up and it's like, oh, you were the worst person they could have picked to do this. Well, that's not entirely true, because you've done X, Y, and Z before with success. Or I'll say, well, the evidence against that is, you've done X, Y, and Z with success, right? So I use those sentence starters. And that becomes very, like, repetitive for me in my head. Yeah. And there's a comfort in that for me. So that creates that sort of in the moment resilience thing that I can pull from, and it knocks out that negative thought. So the knockout punch is, just kind of repeating that mantra of, it's not entirely true, or here's the evidence against that. Right. And so I keep having that internal dialogue as I'm walking through that.
So it's almost like an affirmation, but it's flipping it a little bit.
Yep. It's a twist on affirmations.
Yeah. So you're not saying, like I might say, oh, you can do this because, for whatever reason, because you're strong, because you're good at this or whatever. But you're saying the evidence against
that is the strength I have shown before. Right. So I go, oh, okay. Like, and then I can walk through that. Okay. And I think anytime it creates a ritual too, like it becomes comforting just by its very nature of it being a ritual. So, and so I do that. So what's something else?
So another one of my hacks is a pause button.
Oh,
yeah. So if I don't know what to say right now,
she's drinking her water for those that are just listening. I love it.
I'm just going to stop and take a sip of water, or create some type of space. Oh, I'll be back in a minute. Can I get back to you on that? Oh, I have to walk away right now, and it depends if it's business or professional, how that gets handled.
I saw you do that just the other day.
Did you?
I did. We were presenting and someone asked a question about something that was statistics, and you stopped and you drank your water, and then you went back to the slideshow we were using, and you went back 2 slides and showed the answer to that question. Yeah. But now I know, it looked so natural and so normal, but now I know you were actually thinking, where is that?
Where is that statistic?
Okay, that's 2 slides away.
I can't remember that statistic. Let me just go back and find it. Yeah.
So that was so effective. That worked really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just creating some type of little space to give you a moment. Yeah. I get thirsty a lot when I'm presenting something during presentations.
Yeah. And you're right. It buys you a minute. I think I've done that without intent, but I think I'm going to start using that one too.
And I think it's okay sometimes, just to say to someone, I'm not really sure, and I want to make sure I give you the best information I can. So I'm going to get back to you on that. And that creates a bigger pause. Yeah. Because that can be,
it totally reminds me
2 hours.
Yes. It totally reminds me something that I've done that I didn't do, like, on purpose. Well, I mean, I did on purpose, but I didn't call it a strategy necessarily, but I've done it. And of course you can't do it, like if you're presenting, right? Or if you're like, giving a speech or teaching a class, but like in a conversation, if you need pause, like, oh, hey, just literally saying, like, hey, time out for 1 second. I got to use the bathroom. Yeah. And I don't actually have to use the bathroom. I've done that. And then you just go stand there like, okay, I need to collect myself, and then go back into that room and do a better job, or like, just giving your literally the pause button. I like that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Don't try Googling these hack names, because these are
we made them up.
That we made.
Completely made them up.
Yeah. These are just the strategies that we personally use.
Although if you do find them and they're actually called something, send us a message and let us know. That would be great.
Definitely. We'd love to know that.
And if not, then we just invented it. So
Yeah.
give us credit.
Yeah. There you go.
But okay, so you do the pause button. So one of the things that I do is, and this is something I do with much intention. I do this a lot with intent. I call it mental games.
Yeah.
So this is particularly effective, although it's not the only time that I use it, when I'm waiting, right? Like this is a good hallway activity. This is a good in the car on the way over activity, right? In the Zoom waiting room, because now we add that to the places we wait, right? But in the Zoom waiting room. So a mental game should not, there's a couple of rules. It should not require, and you don't need anything, no paper, no pen, nothing. No one should know that you're doing anything, right? It should be easy, but yet require your complete focus, right? So something like, I'm going to come up with two foods for every letter of the alphabet. So like asparagus, apples, broccoli, beef, until I get to like something stupid like Q and it falls apart, right? So,
or you get really hungry.
Right, or you get really hungry. Or the door opens and it's go time, right? So, but that requires my attention, and I have to think about it, but it's also relatively easy, and no one knows I'm doing it, and I can do that. So a couple of other games that I have used has been like song lyrics backwards. Try to say like, try to do the Hamilton score backwards. That's a hard one. That might be too hard.
I might be able to get Mary Had a Little Lamb out in reverse, but outside of that, or Three Blind Mice. Right. Mice blind 3.
Right. There you go. Well, but you paused, right?
Yes.
So doing that backwards, or like depending on how old you are, if you try to remember like all of the names of every high school teacher you had. Yeah. Because I think I can remember like 3. Sorry, guys. But the 3 of you that are I'm Facebook friends with, those are the ones I remember. And then the one that gave me a D. But like we go back and try to like remember like that moment in time and everything that was associated with that. Right. Yeah. So I'm making this list in my head and no one knows I'm doing that. So why that works for me. So if anybody out there kind of has this same personality makeup, the reason that really works for me is I'm not a person who can clear my mind easily. Like I also do mental games if I'm trying to meditate or I'm trying to relax, right? So I can't clear my mind very easily. I can't just do blank and think of nothing. I need a task. Right. And so it gives me a mindless task that's not going to continue to perpetuate whatever is causing me anxiety and stress. So what's another one you do?
Well, I think one that we kind of share is related to breathing. Yeah. So all different types of breathing, just I'll use a lot of times like square breathing or box breathing. It's what it's called. And it creates space as well. And nobody needs to know that you're doing it. But if I breathe in, for a 4 count and then breathe out for a 4 count and in for a 4 count and out for a 4 count, in your mind, you can envision that as a square as it's going on. Yeah. So that builds some space for me. And, I'm not a therapist or anything like that, or a doctor by any means, but I'm assuming that
bringing in that oxygen
does something within my system.
There's so
to
much
help.
research to support that, like just blood flow and oxygen and intent
giving my body
breathing.
What it needs.
Yeah. So one of the things I learned about box breathing, interestingly enough, is, you breathe in for the 4 counts. So that's the one side of the box. Hold it for the 4 counts. So that's the top of the box, right? And then you exhale for the 4 counts, which is the other side of the box. Yeah. And then hold it across the bottom of the box for 4 counts, right? Yep. For me, when I very first did that, the holding it on the exhale was like ridiculously difficult. I was like, because it was so different than any other breathing. So a couple of things are happening there, right? I'm focused on that. Right. It's got all my attention and concentration. But what happens when you like go underwater, right? You come up and you go. So after I've held it at the bottom and and then I go to inhale, that's a much deeper breath naturally than if I was like, okay, I'm going to inhale for 4 counts, right? So that second time around the box, I'm getting a really good, deep breath that's improving the blood flow and the oxygen and calming down my nervous system and all of those things, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting because somebody had to tell me that, and I was like, oh, it is. I'm being tricked. That is what's happening.
This really is a hack.
Yes. I was like, yes. And then I also think it's important to like the breathing, right? There's super benefits to like diaphragmatic breathing and in the nose and out the mouth and blah, 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 right? But if you are full of anxiety and stress, just breathe. It doesn't matter. Like I like the box breathing because that's like super duper simple. But like I think we spend a lot of time, am I breathing correctly? When just the intentional act of taking air in and letting air out is going to benefit you. And it's literally the simplest thing that you can do that nobody knows you're doing.
Yeah.
It has so many physiological
And that's
benefits.
one of your hacks.
Yeah. Is just to breathe. Right.
Yeah, just breathing, making sure you're doing it.
Teach box breathing. I think it's fantastic. But in the moment, all I can manage to do is to just intentionally breathe in and out.
Yeah.
And it's okay. You know? So,
and I know you'll do deep breaths.
Yes. Like the
really
real deep ones, and just to really get that kind of and I think the exhale is important too. I usually try to focus on that because I think we throw that away a lot. And the more, again, going back to that pool imagery, like when you're letting out all your air, you're sinking to the bottom, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm trying to bring it all down, I'm going to deflate. That helps me.
Would you do the deep breathing more so when you're like out in the hallway beforehand because you're doing that deep expel as well?
So I do both.
Just maybe do breathing. Like if we're sitting here on camera, you're just doing it a little bit
with intent.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, right? So like, yes, all of the stuff that's going to be audible is going to be in the hallway, right?
Yeah.
Or in between. But like if I was feeling like any kind of like stage anxiety or anything right now, as an example, I would be maybe while you were talking, I would just be taking note. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out.
Yeah.
And focusing on that and letting myself breathe a little more deeply than I would, because when you're anxious, you're going to be a little more shallow of a breather. And so, and then that does not help that feeling of anxiety. So there's so much in breathing that can be beneficial to us. It's a way to help somebody else too. To just like, sometimes we need to be reminded, like, just take a deep breath. Just breathe in. Just take a minute and breathe. Yeah. Like, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's something that really can help us regulate and can help us help somebody else regulate as well.
Yeah. Oh. What else do you do?
When I have more time. Okay. So when I have more time, this is the Zoom room or the waiting room or the hallway.
My next one's more time as well.
Yeah. So when I have more time, I really like, and this is an actual technique. You can Google this one. All right. I didn't invent this one.
Box breathing you can Google too.
Yeah. So forget all that stuff we said before. Is PMR, progressive muscle relaxation. And my friend Mallory actually is the one that told me how to do this. So if you're listening, Mallory, thank you. And really walked me through it. And I love it. I fell in love with it. So it's, and it's so funny because sidebar, like I actually used to do this as a kid. Like somebody somewhere taught me this as a kid, but they didn't tell me like it had a name or meant anything, or it was like if I couldn't sleep, right? It was like, well, try this, tighten up your toes, let them go, tighten up, right? So I don't know if anybody else had that, right? But this is basically what it is. It's starting from the bottom of your body to the top. And then if you need to keep going, back down, right? So it's like by muscle groups. So you're going to kind of clench your feet up and like hold them in. And then while you exhale, relax those muscles, right? And then your calves. And then when you exhale, you're going to relax those muscles, right? And then maybe like your upper legs and your thighs and hold it and then relax it and go up your whole body into your face muscles and your head and everything. And then down as well. And just sort of progressively attack all those muscle groups and relax them. Because if you're, you'll find you'll hit areas that are already tense. Yeah. Like if you carry your stress in your back, you're going to hit that and you're going to be like, I can't even clench it because it's already clenched. It's already doing it on its own. So let me just relax it. Right. Yeah. And so that's something when I have the time really does help prepare me to to be more chill, when I'm going
What is
into
a good amount of time to do something like that? And I know we can shorten it or lengthen it, but for you personally?
For me, I really need like a solid 10 minutes. So,
okay.
I think what's so interesting, and we did not talk about this ahead of time, but it's becoming really clear to me as we're talking now, like when you talked about the pre-plan attack, right? Like, that if you get there early and you're anticipating certain things, now you have time, right? To do some deep breathing. Or
I could have been doing that out in my car.
Right. Doing something like a PMR and something like that. So I think it's neat that some of these can actually work together.
Yeah.
Right? But I think that's kind of my list. The breathing, the PMR, the knockout punches, and the mental games are sort of my go-tos when my hand's on the doorknob.
Yeah. So I have the pre-plan attack, the box breathing, the pause button, and my last one, which is my very favorite one. This is when I pull this one out when I just cannot get it done myself. I'm problem solved. I've done every possible thing that I could do. And I'm just not getting anywhere. And it's time that I need to just learn to accept something. So this is when I'm going to pull out the big guns. And by the big guns, I mean, I call my therapist.
Yes.
Hey, I need to come in and talk to you because I've been working on this. And, it's time for me to learn a little humility and acceptance right now. Or I just need some real expertise in problem solving right now because I'm stumped.
Right.
And
I'm
you want to pull out your strongest tool. For me, that's my strongest tool.
Excellent. I love that so much.
Yes.
Well, I hope that you guys can use some of this stuff or have some of your own. And sometimes when we have those things, it's really just a matter of defining them and doing them with intention, right?
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to The Brain Factor. Joy and I are so thrilled to be having these needed conversations. We'd love to hear your feedback on this episode, so if you could drop a comment or leave a review with your thoughts or any requests that you may have, it would be appreciated. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Living a healthier and happier life starts with one step, and we're excited to be on this journey with you. Until next time.